So we're going to do a round robin and just take a couple of minutes each. I'll let you know if you've gone past like 3 or 4 minutes, because that would add up to a lot of time. Just to share one thing from the book that you feel was impactful, and one thing that one question that might still be standing out for you, that the group and Adam could help clarify. Hey, welcome aboard, Maggie. We're just getting started with the round robin. I'll lead the way. I feel like the quote that I really loved was the idea that a facilitator, and this is from page 70, a facilitator can only help participants if they, like participants, move back and forth between bringing their experience and also listening and adjusting to the needs of the situation. The idea that we have to do exactly what we ask our participants to do, that there's this connection between what we do as a self and what we do as a group, I think is really, really profound. And to that point, I think there isn't enough conversation around the inner moves of facilitation, that facilitation is an inner game as much as a set of outer moves. And that's the thing I'm most grateful to have spoken about in the book. And I think you mentioned I'm becoming more masterful as a facilitator, or in my facilitation, in as much as you can recenter yourself more quickly than you used to. And I think it's worth having the conversation at some point about how you develop that skill, because I know that's something that is not clear to everyone, how you develop that skill of the inner capacity for presence and stillness with yourself. I am going to pass the mic over to Osama. Osama.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Adam. Daniel, you look slimmer since last time I saw you. I just want to say that.
Just to be clear, we're here to compliment Adam, not me, but
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And Adam, you have more hair than last time I saw you. So for me, the thing that stuck with me the most was almost the physicist rigor studying these concepts. So I know Daniel, your background is in physics, and Adam, your background is in physics, and my background is in computer science and technical fields. But when I was reading about vertical and horizontal facilitation, for me, I didn't recognize them as separate things because I don't see them existing by them. Like I haven't seen a vertical facilitator or a horizontal facilitator. So for me, they were kind of messy. And so I was irritated to see them split. But as I read more, I valued what I learned by splitting them and studying them and then reintegrating them in transformative facilitation. I hope I made sense. And I pass it to, do I pass it to the next person?
Yes, please.
I pass it to Mark, Melbourne.
Oh, thanks, Osama. Oh, so great to meet you all, and Adam. That I guess what struck me was a lot of resonances for me. I guess I'm kind of a fan of the art of hosting community that does talk about many of the concepts that you've alluded to there in your book. I guess the thing that was impactful for me was just to kind of, in a way, bearing witness to it being applied in such significant kind of high gravity kind of circumstances, which I can't even conceive of being kind of involved, being a witness physically to that. I think the curiosity for me is trying to understand how the experience of that, being in that holding environment of where the magic happens, how does that continue on past once the event is finished? How does that sort of transformation continue to bleed out into what happens next and next and next, and if that's a sort of an intentional part of the process. Handballing to Cara.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Adam, for writing this wonderful book. It was a joy to read. Your stories are amazing, and yeah, similar, I think, to Mark. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine actually having been in these incredibly complex situations, like very high stakes, and sounds intimidating, but you're clearly an expert in navigating these complicated relationships. I got a lot of I had a lot of similar thoughts to what Osama and Mark had said, but something I'll add on top of that is I love the bookend no pun intended, but the concepts that sort of frame the very beginning and the very end of the book, which is removing obstacles to contribution, connection, and equity as the goal of the facilitation. I love just how simple but how impactful that way of thinking about it is. And then by closing the book, where you talk about employing love, power, and justice, and that is kind of similarly things you want to remove obstacles to, but also empower to kind of bring clarity to the situation. So those are two things I really loved. The thing that I'm left with is, it seems as though transformative facilitation is applicable to very specific scenarios, and you have the very last page, which I didn't see for a little while. Well, maybe not the very last page, but is the guide for facilitating breakthrough and how to recognize when it's an appropriate tool. I guess I'm still wrestling with that. How do I know that this is the right tool for the scenario that I'm faced with? And how do I recognize that in the situation? So yeah, that's what I'm left with. Thank you very much. And I will pass it to, I'm going to pick my neighbor down the road in Tampa, Wayne. There's 2 Floridians on this call. It's kind of fun.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Again, thanks, Mark. I don't know if anybody else listened to the book, but I did listen to it. And it was a very good listen. Definitely appreciate it. I know it wasn't you, right? No.
No,
That's somebody else. Okay. But definitely appreciated the way the book, came in, very, the storytelling. Again, those high stakes situations were quite riveting. I liked overall how the book, there was not a lot of dips in it, really. And I definitely liked how the conclusion, it was almost like a fireworks show, right? Where the end had a lot of, stuff going on as well, that really tied things in. Like Cara was saying, the power, love, and justice. It's just like, wow, right? You just sprinkled a lot of chocolate syrup on the top of the sundae that we were already enjoying. So I love that. I loved how you put the power and love. I can almost picture it as a matrix where without power or without love, you really don't have anything, or just having one, just having another, but you need both of them, which is great. And then you put the justice part on there, and it had me thinking and more curious about how different systemic inequities, that exist, look through that lens. And it almost makes me crave for a book, focused on those things, right? Maybe someone else in the Reos group who focused on that, right? What has been their experiences dealing with some of those rather sticky situations. And then lastly, this is something I've been going through personally in terms of being a continuous improvement professional, very process methodology focused. And your book pretty much says, okay, don't rely on that, right? You have to be able to, again, maneuver and shift your balance. And it's not just step 1, step 2, step 3. It could be 1, 2, back to 1, 1, 5, back to 4, just all of that. And the fit for purpose aspect is what I got from it, and was really a mindset shift for me. Thank you. And I will pass it to my neighbor up top. Right next to me is Lynn Carruthers.
Thank you, Wayne. On the opposite side of the country. I loved this one line, Adam. It is a way to remove the obstacles to advancing on their own. A really nice, I also love the definition of the role of a facilitator. I often find that where I work, I struggle with what does a facilitator actually do? No, you don't have all the answers and tell them what to do. So that lovely definition is very helpful. Daniel, will Adam see the things that we wrote up?
Oh, I'm happy to share that
Ultimately.
slides deck with him. We've been capturing our nuggets in a place.
Excellent, thank you. I have all kinds of things, but I'm long time aware of your amazing skills and talents. And I just want to say that Napier would be very proud of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it for me, Daniel. Oh, excuse me, Mark, where are you?
Hey, thanks. I am actually in San Jose, California, so quite close to what's it called? Regionally in a similar location. Yeah, thank you. And nice to meet everyone and people who I don't know and do know, but also very much nice to meet you, Adam. I can only kind of piggyback on what other people said because they've said it somewhat better than I can. And I think what struck me was the really simple part of the things that make us different. There's things that make us different, but focusing on the things that bring us together is kind of the basis of facilitation. And the way that you work with the group dynamic to really focus on, I guess, I never really thought of being able to bring it back to like the human elements of, the power, love, and justice, but really having those goals and the reasons why they have a reason to come to the table, even at these high stakes, is just kind of how magical how you were able to condense into something so simple, because I think condensing it down is one of the most difficult things to do. So I very much appreciate you having gone through those experiences and being able to share it in that manner. And I think what kind of the question that I have that kind of was left with was kind of similar to Daniel's, but it's, when facilitating intense situations with such high stakes, how do you, as a facilitator, recenter yourself, kind of avoid burnout and recoup from it, so that you can continue to provide this type of facilitation again and again over time. And I think that's kind of like the question that that's probably going to be going for a long period of time beyond this conversation, but would very much appreciate to learn more about that as well. Thank you so much. And to that, I will popcorn to Maggie.
Thanks, Mark. Adam, it's a privilege to meet you and spend this time with you. I'm a fan of solving tough problems, which I bought many years ago because I do a lot of scenario work. The part that really resonated for me was that notion of a part of the group and apart from the group. That is always one of my mantras as I go in, especially when it's what you call the high wire situations, is this is not about me, but I'm there too, and so that notion of toggling back and forth between being a part and also a part of the group. It was enjoyable to see the forward by Ed Shine. He was one of my professors at the Pepperdine MSOD program many years ago. And I also really appreciate just the book, all the citations and notes, because I followed up on a lot of those as well. So it's a wonderful resource. So thank you. I'll pass it to Carrie.
Thanks, Maggie. And thank you, Adam, for being here and for this book. I'm a fellow Barrett Kohler author, so hello. I learned so much, and really over the last year and a half, I never considered myself to be a facilitator, and over, working with Daniel and his masterclass, I've realized that everything I do is actually facilitation. This was deeply clarifying for me, especially the ideas of vertical and horizontal facilitation. Like Osama, I didn't realize that those were two separate things, and that I often am working in environments where vertical facilitation is the only acceptable kind of facilitation in these corporate environments, but where from the top, but then horizontally, there are just so many voices that are not being heard and are frustrated, and then things are falling apart. So that really clarified that for me. And the concept that I am taking away from it more than anything else is this concept of unconditional positive regard for the people that you are facilitating, and perhaps for yourself as well as you're facilitating. That will stick with me for a long time, when especially facilitating difficult groups. The question that I'm still wondering about is, I think, Carrie, you mentioned this, how to know if this facilitation is right, and then how to get consent to facilitate like this, or if that is even a concept that makes sense in your framework. And then also, what to do when working in this context and then groups have a sort of false consensus and are being too nice to each other, so that you're not really able to make any progress. So that is my big question after reading this. Thank you. And I'll pass it to Kelly.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Carrie. I'm Kelly Evans from San Francisco. I apologize my late. And this is also my first one. So what an impression. Hopefully none of you will forget me this time, because I'll be that one. Nice to see you, Daniel, again.
Likewise.
And wow, Carrie, so many things that you said were exactly right on. I'm only on chapter 2. I consider myself an accidental and a somewhat reluctant facilitator. I am an introvert, and yet I have stuck myself in a position where I felt facilitation was important, it was needed at the moment, and lo and behold, I was going to step in to try to be that person. I was struck immediately from the book, just joyfully surprised about sort of elevating the role of the facilitator to sort of this it was sort of a spiritual celebration of the role of facilitator for me. Because the facilitators often, especially in my work environment, reduced to its minimal parts. You're going to keep us on time. You're going to create an agenda. It's really pretty stale. And I was really struck by the vertical and horizontal as well, coming at it from the side. And I think sometimes it's more formal, and the other one's sort of how it really happens, right? And to Carrie's point, I would love to learn how do you influence the organization to buy into a different way of doing and being. And I also, Carrie, echoed you're developing empathy with myself as a facilitator. Lynn and I are colleagues, and we've done a ton of co-facilitation, and just the exhaustion I personally feel sometimes was something I just needed to give myself permission, because I felt I was giving so much to the group and felt so much accountability and responsibility for the success of whatever it was I was trying to get the group from point A to point B. And just, being okay with sometimes it being messy or just missing the mark. So I'm also learned, or I look forward to learning this, sort of how to tap into the flow of this transformative facilitation to help bolster myself through those and gain some buoyancy through some of the ups and downs of how these things really unfold in real life. So that's all. I'm just on chapter 2. So tremendously impactful right at the get-go. Adam, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. And Adam, I hope that wasn't too much of a shower / fire hose of insights. What from that is sticking for you as worth stretching out and expanding? I know that was a lot, but I'm curious where you think it would be interesting to start unpacking.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Thanks for reading the book and finding something useful in it. let me say a few things. And also, perhaps it's a counter norm, but also show you a few slides. And the reason is that I finished the book early in the year. It's a very long process from the time you finish the manuscript to the time the book comes out. I love Barrett Kohler, by the way. It's really not I really enjoy working with them. But anyhow, the point is I finished writing the book, I don't know, 6 months ago, but I wasn't really presenting it yet. So I was sort of mulling it over in my mind and also rereading it many times because you have to keep proofreading it, things like that. So as a result, there are a few things that are clear to me now that aren't in the book.
But
Including
you've learned things
some-
since writing the book. That's not allowed. It's it stays in time and that's it.
Including some images, because it's more trouble than it's worth to try to get images into a printed book usually. But I'm giving a lot of presentations and I like to use images in my slides. So the one phrase that I've come up with that's not in the book, but which I think explains the book, is that I think the world needs more and better collaboration. And if you define a facilitator simply as somebody who helps people collaborate to affect change, then the world needs more and better facilitation. So that's a summary of what the book's about that isn't in the book. I'm just going to show you a few images that relate to some of the things images that I like making these slides and they relate to things you've said. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen here. Sorry, this is the wrong place. Yeah, so you mentioned being a physicist. This is a bar in Montreal. I don't think it exists. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore. But when I was a physics student, I was dating a theater student and she worked at the Kon-Tiki. She was a bartender at Kon-Tiki. And I would go, I can't remember how often a week, but I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times a week and sit at the bar waiting for her to shift to finish and work on my physics problems. So I like that a lot. It actually really did. I think this is a photo from before my time, but it really did look like this when I used to go there. But anyhow, I do like this activity of trying to figure out very precisely how to say things. I haven't taken anything else from my studies as in physics, but I did take this this love of finding a clear and simple way to say things. And the table at the back of the book, which I suppose doesn't show up very well in the audio version or even in the digital version, but you can read in the paper version, is pretty complete. And this vertical and horizontal is a new idea. I'm not surprised that you haven't heard of it before. It's not the book is describing something that lots of good facilitators do, but it's describing it in a new way. And the big turning point in the book is when I realized the book was not about vertical bad, horizontal good, but choosing vertical or horizontal is bad and working with them both is good.
Can you say it one more time?
Yeah, so my editor, I don't know if it's the same as Carrie's editor, is the former president of Barrett Kohler. His name's Steve Piersante. He's probably the best business book editor in the United States. He's quite a modest man, but he'll admit to that. And one of the things he's told me recently, because I worked on 5 books with him, is that a book has to have a bad guy. You know, you have to say what this is not.
Ah.
And so I thought that when I first started writing it, I thought that the bad guy was vertical facilitation, and that the point of the book was you needed not to be vertical and horizontal. But early on, a very generous person who I actually don't know, but who was one of the readers, one of the 207 readers of the manuscript, a guy named Marco Valenti, said to me, no, he thinks I'm wrong. This is a polarity, and the bad guy is choosing one or the other, which I think most facilitators do, or at least they tend to one or the other. And the recommended approach is to use them both, which you'll recognize as the central organizing idea in the book. And so a very important piece of feedback. This thing about similarity and difference is interesting to me. And I, years ago, somebody said to me, it's both. It's like Paris Fashion Week. Every year it's the same, every year it's different. So to me, they're equally important. It's an ordinary polarity. It's related to power and love, but that they're both true, and that you need to focus both on what's common and what's different, and to focus only on what's common is the vertical, and to focus only on what's different is the horizontal. Now, the last image I want to show you is something I described in the book, but I have photographs about it, and it relates to the point that Kara made, I'm going to say that you don't need to decide if transformative facilitation is the right approach. I'm asserting that this is a general theory and practice of facilitation, and that transformative facilitation equals good facilitation. So I know that's an audacious statement. So there is a discernment about fit for purpose, but it's not about transformative facilitation, yes or no. It's about which move to make.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the discernment comes in. And here is when COVID started, my wife and I moved from the city to the country. And I wrote about this in the book, but the images, I think, will say it more clearly. So I live in Montreal, I'm back now, and this is where I go jogging every morning. And it's pretty straightforward because the streets are marked. But when I got to the country, I jogged here where there are, there are no marked paths. And it was really interesting because there's lots of paths in this forest, and I kept getting lost for days and days. In parentheses, I got lost while I was thinking of my book. So I was paying attention to something else and I would get lost. And the first time I got lost for hours, and it was getting dark, and I really thought I wouldn't make it back. It was pretty scary. And even when I did get back to a part of the trail I recognized, I again started thinking about what I was writing, and I got lost again right at the end. But the interesting thing is, it's not true. I realized after 3 or 4 days, it's not true that the path is unmarked. Actually, it's marked very clearly. There are red ribbons around the trees. But because I didn't know there were red ribbons, I didn't notice them. Actually, it's more dramatic than that. There are parts of the trails when somebody has spray painted big red dots. They're pretty high up. But the point is, if you know what to look for, you can find your way. But if you don't know, it just looks like this, like, what's the direction? And I did this for a full year. And more or less trying to go on the same trail, but it's pretty different from month to month, at least in Canada. And you have to be paying attention to different things. On the top right, where the leaves are very thick, it's really easy to trip. When it's snowy, it's not hard to find the trail, but it's dangerous in other ways, etc. So anyhow, I'll stop there. So this idea that the discernment is about which move to make. There's only 10 moves. In a way, it's pretty simple, right? It's just 10 things. It's not a million. 10 is not a very big number, but they're not in any particular order. So it's like I was thinking it's like a recipe where they tell you there's 10 ingredients, but they don't tell you how much of each, in what order, or how to combine them. Just pay attention to what's needed next. I guess there are people who cook like that. I wouldn't know how. So that's the discernment, is about what to use when. And I don't have a lot to say about this question about being present. I mean, people always are interested in that. I don't know any way to do it except pay attention, and when you screw up, figure out what did I do there, and how do I do it better next time. There may be better ways. Yeah. Then the last thing I'll say in relation to your comments is, it's an interesting question, is how do you get consent to facilitate in this way? I think one of the reasons for writing the book, well, for all of my books, but including this one, is I'm trying to make it easy for people to, I'm trying to give the user some authority. To say, well, you know, you might not believe me, but here's a book. It's got Nelson Mandela on the back. Because my experience is actually almost nobody cares about the process. If you try to explain it to them, very few people are interested. All they want to know is, do I trust you to work? And that's about credibility and privilege and received, whatever it's called, referred credibility and things like that. So yeah. So anyway, I'll stop there. Oh, sorry. The last thing, one of you mentioned this being a part of and apart from. I think it was Maggie. This has really interested me a lot. That's why even though logically the last story it doesn't have to be the last chapter, but I really wanted that to be the last chapter because I think it's a very fundamental thing about whether you consider yourself outside or inside a situation. And somebody said to me today, it's the difference between controlling a situation and entering a situation. And when you think about it that way, of course we can't control, and of course we are entering, but to recognize that, and again to recognize it's not that inside good, outside bad, but choosing one or the other rigidly is bad. And so like the other four polarities, it's a matter of doing them both.
I'm going to invite Kara and Maggie, since I think your points were the ones covered by a fair bit of that. If there's a follow-up or a deeper question you have from what was just shared by Adam. Not to put you both on the spot.
Yeah.
I'm just inquiring. Am I inquiring or advocating, Adam? I actually don't know.
Well, I like the idea. I bet that those they are, you know, 5 polarities, and it's that discernment. At any moment, are you getting too involved and trying to shift the group to where you think they should be? Then you need to back off. If you're not paying attention and you're just outside and checking your phone, then you need to get re-engaged. And I think that, you know, for each of those polarities, I mean, I love facilitating because when you're in role, it's so easy to hold unconditional positive regard and to just accept that whatever is happening is part of the process. And, you know, we trust the process and itself as instrument. And I think I acknowledge as well that the longer you do this work, the less vulnerable you are to making it, you know, about, oh, I hope I don't make a mistake, or I don't want to look stupid. Like, you just can be there and stand in grace. Not always. And what I appreciated too is you're admitting, you know, when you really messed up and when you were awkward or scared. And I think that, you know, I mean, I just loved your stories, but that to me, just that notion of these as polarities and having the versatility to be able to toggle back and forth pretty immediately. Kara, say a lot.
I don't think it was my comment though. I think it was somebody else who made about the apart or a part or not a part of it. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, Daniel.
No, I think it was the
I think it was you about the
there, go ahead.
Is transformative facilitation the right tool?
Right. Okay. Then yeah, I was like, I want to ask about that, but I don't want to take it off topic. So yeah, I think I'm trying to deepen my understanding, and your points that you just made, I think were really clarifying that this isn't a tool or a method or a technique that you use in a specific scenario. It's the way you work with people in the scenario that you're helping them move forward together in any time that's what's being asked of you to help people with. So I guess what I've been like trying to grasp for a process, you know, like what does an agenda look like in a transformative facilitation situation? But I think what I'm hopefully understanding, and correct me, Adam, if I'm not quite there yet, but this is more a set of inner moves that you're using and cycling through in whatever the agenda is. That's really.
Right? You're correct, and I'm seeing it more clearly now. It's a set of outer moves and inner shifts. Well, let me say what the book says. Someday we can decide whether this is a true or false statement. But what the book says is this is a set of outer moves and inner shifts required for any and all good facilitation. And that this is a general and complete theory and practice. So I say it with with trepidation, because that's a big claim, and there may be more than 5 or fewer than 5. But yes, this is like I don't know what you call it, but it's the basics for all kinds of what I call real facilitation. That's to say, not including where you're trying to manipulate or control people.
So Adam, there's 2 things I want to follow up on. One is, sometimes I think about it as there's the center and the edges of the conversation. And there is definitely a heartbeat in a powerful group conversation where the edges are everyone having their own opinion, but also small conversations, self-conversations, and the center where we're all having the conversation together, and whether or not we can align or agree or find a path forward, that's the other question. But I think when you flashed your slides, I saw number 51 is, I think, from Collaborating with the Enemy, which when we talk about physics brain and thinking really schematically and clearly about these things, when we had our first conversation, I loved seeing this flow chart of, is a real change here possible? Can I live with it? If not, then can I walk away from it? If not, then. I don't know if you can share that for a moment, because I think that yeah, there it is. I feel like that in a way that answers a little bit of Kara's question of like, is a real change here possible? Is everyone co-located in the same, are they all reading this diagram in the same way? Because if somebody says, okay, I think I can force this, and other people are like, I'm going to exit this, and somebody else is saying, I think we should collaborate, then maybe we're not ready for, I feel like I'm getting an amen from Carrie. So but I'd love to get a confirmation from you, Adam.
I think that's also where part of my question came from, is like, how do I know we're ready to move forward? I think with the collaborating, like you said. So that's that. I love that slide. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, so Daniel's referring to an idea that I think I allude to in this book, but which is this central point in my previous book, Collaborating with the Enemy. And it makes the point that there's more than one way to deal with a situation. There are these 4 ways, and collaborating for some people is their favorite thing. Some people it's their least favorite thing. But anyhow, you can't collaborate with everybody on everything. So collaboration is a choice. Not only is it a choice, but it's an unstable choice. So people can say we want to collaborate, and then after 5 minutes or 5 months say, no, this isn't working. I'm going to exit or adapt or force. But the subject of this book is if and only if the actors want to collaborate, then some person or people have to facilitate, and this is how to do it. But this book says nothing about what to do if people or if key people don't want to collaborate. The book is silent on that question, except to say that's not facilitation and that's something else.
Excuse me, Adam, can you, I think Osama had his hand.
Are we open to make general comments, or there's a flow?
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
Okay.
I'm not in charge here, strangely enough.
For me, the story about the mystery, Adam, comes back. The story that you started the book with, and I'm both delighted and sad to see the mystery decomposed and to gain a deeper understanding of the mystery. And when I hear you saying a general theory for facilitation, I cringe a little bit, and I think that I'd like to think there's more to that, but I think this is a very useful theory. It's like the Newtonian, view of physics, very useful. And then maybe later we'll have the relative theory for facilitation that adds a few things that we missed and things like that. So it's like this alternation between the magical, the mythical, and the kind of rational, carefully strategized approaches that I get as I read the book.
Yeah. Well, it's thanks for saying that. Of course, you'll recognize that early in the book, I abandoned any attempt to define the mystery or even explain it. I don't understand it at all. And I didn't elaborate on it, but my conversation with Pacho de Rue was super confusing because he basically said, anyway, he basically, by the end of the dinner, said, don't worry, you don't need to understand that. So, and I moved on. And as I point out, which you recognize, this isn't like a mystery, like an Agatha Christie mystery that you solve. And so what I became more interested in is not what's the mystery, but what can you do to remove the obstacles? And so that's where I turned my attention. And but as for what it is, and it's a bit of a leap to say the expression of the mystery is power, love, and justice. I mean, I don't have much confidence in that statement. It just was a way of tying the whole thing together. So don't worry, there's lots more. There's lots more to be said about the mystery and the expression of the mystery. It's I haven't even begun that.
Thank you for that.
Wayne, what's still on your brain?
Yes, thank you. Adam, I had a question about the last thing you said before, this book being about facilitation. And so when the chief or something or another, the Manitoban elder, I believe, said, "I don't trust you," was he still collaborating with you? Or was he not? I mean, were you not at one of those forks in the road? Or was he still participatory?
Well, it's a good question, and I shortened the story a little bit because it was hard to get the tone right. So let me just add a few more things. So George Moosewagon, who was the man who made that statement, is a tall guy, and he has a ponytail. So he looks like I imagined. He's a big guy, tall, and he has a ponytail. So he looked like what I would have imagined a First Nations, he wasn't an elder, but a First Nation chief would look like. So when he said, I hadn't met him before, this was the first day of the meeting, and I didn't know him from beforehand. So when he said that, as I said in the book, I was pretty scared. But he said it in a very kindly way. And I got to know him later, and he is a exceptionally kind and generous person. So he was, I think, in referring to that framework, he was saying, I might exit here. I mean, well, or you might have to exit here, which is how I took it. Because I have 2 or 3 times been asked to leave in the middle of the meeting, and it's not a fun experience. I was not anxious for it to be. I mean, I've literally been asked to leave meetings, and it's not the sort of thing you want to have happen. Again,
by the way,
certainly not in the middle of.
In there.
What's that?
I really appreciate you putting that in there, that it wasn't all happy roses, that you did put in that. It was appreciated. Being asked to leave, a little vulnerability there. Loved it.
Yeah, and it's being asked to leave in the middle of the winter in Manitoba is like an extra kind of hardship. So it's like, but anyhow, so yes, he was saying, I think, I'm not sure this is going to work. I'm not sure this is working for me. I might have to exit, or I might have to ask you to leave. But he said it in a way that implied he was open to staying. And that's why when I said to him later, I don't want you to trust the process. So that's the opposite of what facilitators usually say or often say. I think he took that as that he liked that I wasn't demanding that he trust me or the process, but that could we just keep going for another little while and see. And anyhow, after a while, that particular crisis passed, and we became pretty good buddies, and the process as a whole was quite successful.
I think this question of unconditional positive regard, which another way of putting it is assuming positive intent. I think someone else might have heard that comment and heard it as a threat or as a declaration of intent, not a we're at a fork in the road and what would you like to do? In a way, I would propose that you took it in the best possible way in that moment through your inner shift of, oh, well, what are my choices here?
I think I at least kept the door open, and then we had a facilitator meeting, and it was other people, not just me, who together we decided very quickly what to do differently, and it was on a better path. And he his tone of voice was not threatening, it was just honest.
Mm.
And I've often found as a facilitator that most people in a group don't speak honestly, and the people who do, you can hear them so well. It's a thrill when somebody will speak honestly, because it just cuts through the normal, the crap that fills up most rooms most of the time.
Well, Adam, speaking of not filling up a room with crap, this has been a really, for me, this is my favorite thing to talk about. So I'm glad to spend this time with you. I want to respect your time. I know you have a couple more minutes with you. I will stick around if anybody else has some final checkout or processing or additional conversation that we want to have. But I just would like to thank you, Adam, for making this time to have this conversation. As you say, the world needs more of this, of people who feel empowered to do the thing that can help better things get done together. So thank you for doing that. And thanks for everyone for being here.
Thank you, Daniel.
You, Adam.
Well, thanks to all of you. And Daniel, I really enjoyed our conversation, whenever it was, a year ago. And so I think you're a very gifted podcaster. So I was happy to have at least the consolation prize of a book club conversation. And it's really fun for me to talk about this with people who are interested in it. So thank you all.
Thank you all.
The book.
Adam,
Thank you.
happy
Bye.
Tuesday, everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna leave.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Kara.
Daniel, it was great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Lynn, it was a
Dan.
pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you
Adam.
so much.
And Adam, if you ever need any Korean translation of those comments that never quite arrived, I'd be happy to do so.
That's amazing.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark. Oh, it's the Marks. Thanks, Marks.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Mark.
Hey, one thing I was thinking about,
Yes.
the art of hosting community has a lot of great frameworks that resonate really strongly with a lot of those themes.
Yes.
Chaotic path is kind of the same thing for me, and
Yeah.
fourfold practice is another frame. I just sometimes, for me, they're so kind of powerful. Why does it? Sometimes it feels so hard to get the world hearing some of these. Given collaboration is kind of the
du jour.
Yeah, and where we need to get to.
I mean, this is an interesting question, and I must confess I don't know about the fourfold practice, which I want to look into. I know with the chaotic path, I think it is interesting because Adam's diagrams, and I tried to make my own visual of like, yeah, it's about the shift, it's about the moving back and forth, and non-polarity thinking.
Yeah.
Right, or polarity thinking, depending on how you like to think of things. And boy, oh boy, I don't know. I think it is a hard thing for the world to lean into non-polarity thinking, to sit with polarity, because it's just like, it's hard to sit with the polarity. One of the polarities that I've been talking to people about is there's nothing wrong with a sprint. Right? Jake's book is awesome. It's like, let's spend a week just chugging through it. And then people are like, well, actually, can we do it in a half day? Can we do it in a day? Totally fine, right? Let's just full speed ahead, but we don't know how to slow down and have more languishing conversations. And in the kind of conversations that Adam hosts, they do both. I guarantee you that they're, you have some rapid fire cadences and some slowed down conversations. But I think just generally speaking, the Western disease is speed and efficiency. That's my hot take.
Yeah, and I wonder if I guess a product of being in a state of anxiety or trauma or stress or whatever, you do gravitate to black and white thinking, and being able to navigate the wavy path of vertical, horizontal, chaotic path actually requires that gray and that negative capability stuff, which yeah, is probably works against the unconscious tendency we have in that sort of trauma kind of anxiety state, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll keep trying. So I can recommend in artofhosting.org has a whole lot of video vignettes and templates and things, and some really people who've been working at it for a long time in there to take through the stepping stones of the chaotic path and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, just thought I'd say that.
No, I
Great
appreciate
work. Thanks, Daniel.
Good to see you, Mark. I'm glad you could make it out. I'm going to
Yeah.
include this in the episode. I hope that's okay. This is great.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no worries. All right, we'll catch you around.
All right. Good to see you, brother. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.